Hey, Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. And if I seem a little tickled beforehand, we just saw a smart car drive by. William was telling me that thing was pulling the trailer the other day. I don't know, I guess you do whatever you got to do up in these mountains. I have in my life seen steer horns on a Pinto back in the 80s. Boss hog style, so anything's possible. All right, here we go. 18-day compost pile. It's probably, I'll be honest with you, this is one of those times where we haven't really kept up with it anywhere near as much as we should have. We just get busy with life, and it's true to action. If you want to see it from start to finish in the most perfect way that we can know how to do it, well, we got playlists for that. And of course you can find that under the playlist section. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. It's breaking down, but some of these oak leaves in there, you know, it's going to take it a while, but check it out. It's still becoming compost. So that's the most important thing. But I'll be honest, y'all, when I'm out here doing this kind of work, I mean, number one, I love it, every bit of it. And also it allows me, for part of my mind, maybe that intellectual part of it, where I get to think about a lot of things, especially about current events, how they could be better, what can you do to change them. And that's really what, I don't know, I think I got on my mind to really talk about today. And before I get into any of that, let me just tell you right off, you can see, I don't know that you can see it, but there is some steam coming out of here. Yeah, that thing's plenty hot. It's exactly what it ought to be. So it's really compulsory, as I said before. It's just going to go from here, and we're going to restack it right over here. Nothing major about it. And what I'm going to do is take the outside here. If it's clumped up a little bit, once again, make sure you change it out. But to make ourselves so we don't work so hard, I'm going to shave off this end right here, bring it over first, so I can pretty much put this thing pretty close to the footprint that it was already on. You see that? It's going to make life a little bit easier. It's finding those little things. As you can see, look at this stuff. It's getting dark. It's definitely turning into compost. And if it has to take longer than 18 days, that's not a big deal. So, anyway, y'all, we were just up there doing our podcast. If you don't know about it, it's called the Permaculture P.I.M.P cast. And yes, for those that don't know, P.I.M.P stands for permaculture is my passion. I love acronyms. It helps. There's so many different ways to remember things that might be difficult to remember. That's pretty simple. But lately, I've been thinking about some other acronyms. And maybe not on a farming level, or maybe it should be. One of those acronyms being HORE. Yeah, I said it. W-H-O-R-E. Or some people say HO. But it means the same thing, right? I'll come to that in a minute. You know, everybody, it seems like, is putting their bid in to be president. And, you know, whether it's Trump the other day or whether it's the moron that's in there right now, look, I make no bones about it. I'm not left, I'm not right. I'm all about that Constitution. And if you're there, well, I'm there with you. But I've been asking myself critical things about the people running things. You know, we're looking at this scandal, the FX thing with the Bitcoin exchange. And we're looking at all the people in there that we're finding out are sleazy, all the way up to Cocaine Harry Reid, or whatever they call him, or Mitch McConnell. That's it. Harry Reid wouldn't be the one. Cocaine Mitch. Yeah. He and all the other prostitutes, or harlots, whatever you want to say, they're all mixed up in this same thing. So when Trump is going on about draining the swamp, I submit to you another idea. I don't think we got a swamp problem. I think we got a prostitution problem, you dig? That's why I call them whores. And that stands for Washington Harlots on rent every session. Whores. That's exactly what they are. You say that? You agree, son?
Yep.
Yep. Or I'll say it in other ways, a bunch of hoes. Okay? So, you know, a while back, Jimmy Stewart was in this movie called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Showed just how corrupt the whole process was even back then. Well, I submit to you that it ain't any better. In fact, it's infinitely worse. I mean, it's unbelievably worse. And a little side note, when you see those little white things in there, that's dead bacteria. that's telling me that this pile got a little bit too hot. Part of our neglect, but we know how to mitigate those things. So we're basically got maybe a tiny bit too much moisture in there, and we're going to fix it. But we showed you how to do all those things in that playlist. Back to the whores. Washington harlots on rent every session. You know, Mr. Smith, he goes there in that old Jimmy Stewart movie, and he finds out that this thing is corrupt up one side, down the other. It's way worse now. And I think it ought to be like Governor Jesse Ventura put it one time, that maybe all these people, like NASCAR drivers, maybe they should have all over their suits and pantsuits or whatever it is they're wearing to Congress these days. Maybe instead of, you know, a little USA button or whatever it is they're wearing, maybe they should be like NASCAR drivers and all over their suits put all the special interests that own them, that actually own them. And then you're going to be a little astonished at what you find out. And who, you know, whether it's left or right, it doesn't matter. The same interests control them all. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, you name it, they own pretty much everything. And it's the same polecats doing the same thing every time. So back in the day, Mr. Smith went to Washington. But I gotta be honest with you, these days I'm thinking about sending a pimp to Washington, because that's exactly what these whores need. You dig? Son, what do you think?
Send a pimp to Washington.
That's right. Send a permaculture pimp daddy to Washington. Oh, you're thinking, okay, well, you're a farmer. You don't know anything about politics. Was that right? Because according to my history books, the ones that started this country and wrote that Constitution, you know, people like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were all farmers too. Yeah.
This pimping is certified.
That's right. That's right. So we send a pimp to Washington. So you're thinking, oh, well, you know, you can't do that job. Do you think I'd do a better job than the moron that's in there right now? Or any of the other prostitutes or politicians or pundits? Anybody they endorse? Now, granted, I'll give it to you this day. Let's just say by some miracle I did make it in. I'll put it this way. November 22nd, I'll be making sure I'm not riding in a bubble top limousine, you dig? So I'll make sure that all goes down the right way. So anybody's always wondering, well, what do you do with your time during the day? Well, I spend a fair piece thinking about how we can make compost better, how we can make this country better, how we can make a whole lot of things better. And you know what? I've even, just off the top of my head, you know, who would I pick as vice president? To me, there's only one choice, and it really ought to be president, but I'll stand in. Ron Paul, I'm going to pick him. I'm going to draft him. He doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be my vice president. And I got a few other draftees in here just off the top of my head I might consider drafting as well. Let's see here. In charge of Department of Agriculture. There's no way Joel Salatin ain't getting that position. And you know why? I'm going to have him dismantle it. Yeah. So Joel, keep your phone handy, because I'll be giving you a ring when the permaculture pimp daddy goes to Washington to pimp these hoes. Every last one of them. Department of Education. Well, it's going to be abolished as well, but I got just the right person to do that. Bobby Spags, you just got enlisted, and I want you to do the same thing that Joel's going to do. I want you to tear it apart. I want you to absolutely, positively do what Kennedy said he was going to do to the CIA back after the Bay of Pigs incident, where he said he was going to splinter it into 1,000 pieces and cast it into the wind. I want you to do the same thing with the Department of Education. Danny, my friend over at Deep South Homestead, I'm going to put you definitely in charge of the Department of the Interior. And you're going to show them how far it goes, or what it means to be frugal over there. And all these people that want to tear down monuments, you know, we're going to need definitely somebody from the South to deal with this part. So you're going to be in part of the Interior Department. Now, it's not really a cabinet position, but I'm going to throw it in there. By the way, half the government's going away. No, we're gonna say 3/4 of the government's going away. So yeah, all those people that are on the unemployment lines coming out of Facebook and all these others, don't worry, you won't be alone. There's gonna be a whole lot of useless government workers over there with you. So yeah, it's all gonna work out. Don't worry, I got you back. Unemployment pays real good. So let me see, who else do I have picked out for a position? Oh yeah, my press secretary. You're gonna love this one. The one and only Stu Peters. You're getting drafted as my press secretary. Yeah. So let's see some of these Washington prostitutes give that guy some lip. We'll see how all that pans out for him. Judge Napolitano, don't worry, you're gonna be on my short list for the Supreme Court. Because half of those people up there, well, you know, they need to go anyway, but don't worry, you're on the short list. Tom Woods, Dr. Tom Woods, real inspiration in my life. I think I'm gonna put you in charge of the Justice Department. Don't worry, we'll work out the particulars later. So, when I take office, there's gonna be a lot of changes in this country. And you're saying, you may be thinking at this present moment, that's an impossibility. Really? I don't know about all that. Because let's think this out here. We pretty much got this flipped, and you can see all the heat coming off of here, by the way. Let's think about some of these other positions before I get too further down the road. My spiritual advisor, Pastor Lon over at the Homesteading Pastor, gotta have you. Besides, every time I step out of order, Pastor Lon, William's got his shirt on. Pastor Lon's the first one sending me a text or email saying, hey brother, you need to straighten up your shot group. And anybody in any position of leadership needs to have those people. I'm not seeking the office of the presidency of the United States because I want to, unlike some of the other people that have run for office, I'm not seeking this position to tell people what to do. One of my favorite authors once wrote, the most improper job of any man is bossing other men. Not one in a million is fit for it, and least of all, those that seek the opportunity. So, this is how this is going down. I'm seriously thinking about I might put my little bid in to be president of the United States of Amnesia. And before they bump me off like Kennedy, I'm gonna make sure all this stuff goes down exactly the way I said. So, here we go. This pile's finished, y'all. I'll just come around this side here while William's doing this little Mexican hat dance all the way around it. Maybe I'll go into greater detail where it's not on the top of my head talking about the other cabinet positions I have in mind.
You're gonna beat it like Bill Pelosi.
Bam! So, here we go. I mean, back to the compost. We'll talk about my presidential bid here in a second. William's kicking in the sides to help that heat funnel up through the top. It's coming along. It's looking real good. Looking like compost. And look at this. Woo! Yeah, worm. I don't know if you can see that or not. That little worm knows what time it is. In fact, I'd elect that worm more than I would all these prostitutes and pundits that are in there. So look, at this point, all we're going to do, basically cover it back up. It's compulsory, as I said, at this point. We got another pile up there we're going to add a little bit of TLC to, and it's going to sit under that plastic tarp for a while until we're ready to use it. So look, instead of sending another sleazy politician to the White House, send a P.I.M.P. to go deal with these whores. Washington harlots on rent every session. That's exactly what they are. So send a pimp to work with these whores in Washington. So, I'll give you more information in the future as my presidential bid unfolds. And I'll tell you how you can contribute. And I won't be accepting donations from anybody that's related to any corporation. And if it's not a personal donation, I'm not getting it. And if you think I can't handle my own in a debate against these fools, yeah, that's going to be a made-for-TV moment the day I go up against some of these clowns. So, if you need bone sauce, if you need comfort, you can still plant it if you're able to work the soil. You need any of the things we have, hey, milk boy, Hey, you want to be in my cabinet?
Department of Defense.
Yep. There it is. He'd probably do a better job than half these sleazeballs in there right now anyway. All right, y'all. Give that some consideration. We'll talk to you more as this presidential bid unfolds. Till next time, this is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion. And send me to Washington so I can deal with these whores. We'll see you next time.
This was paid for by the Permaculture Pimp Daddy and the Pasture Raised Pimp. Stay alert, stay alive.